Okay, this is exercise set 1.2. I'm going to do some of the odd numbered problems to give you a sense of how this works. The even numbered problems are assigned for homework, at least 5 of them are. That's why I've labeled them with an HW, so I don't do them by mistake. Okay, so the question here for this homework is this issue about what are sentences in a logical sense. Another word for a sentence in the logical sense is proposition. This is a word that philosophers use specifically to mean sentence in a logical sense. Okay, so the basic idea behind whether a sentence is a sentence in the logical sense or a proposition is to think about this question. Is it true, or possibly is it false? In other words, if you can ask of a sentence that somebody utters, is that sentence true or is that sentence false? If that question makes sense, then it's probably a proposition. So for example, number 1, today is Thursday. If somebody said to you, today is Thursday, it would make perfect sense for you to say, yes, it is true that today is Thursday, or alternatively, no, it is false that today is Thursday. So that means the answer to the question, is this a sentence in a logical sense, is yes for number 1. Number 3, I love fluffy puppies. Now, there's a sort of obvious difference between 1 and 3. Number 1 is straightforwardly factual, today is Thursday, whereas number 3 looks more subjective, right? And sometimes that throws people off. But don't let it throw you off, because again, the question here is not whether it's subjective or objective. The question is, does it make sense to say that it's true or false, right? So imagine your friend uttered this sentence, I love fluffy puppies. And unbeknownst to him, you happened to spy him on the street the other day kicking a fluffy puppy. Then you might well say that his claim to love fluffy puppies is false, right? And that would make perfect sense. If somebody said, I love fluffy puppies, and you said, that's false because I saw you kicking a fluffy puppy, that's perfectly okay. Or if you said, yes, that's true, you love fluffy puppies, that would be good too. So that means, again, for number 3, the answer is yes, it is a sentence in the logical sense. Number 5, stop talking so loudly. Now that's what's called an imperative or a command, right? And if somebody said to you, stop talking so loudly, and you turned around and you said, that's false, that would not really make any sense, right? Because the command is not the kind of thing that could be true or false, right? It could be fulfilled or unfulfilled. If you do indeed stop talking, then you've fulfilled the command or obeyed it. But the command itself, stop talking so loudly, is neither true nor false. It doesn't make sense to say if somebody commands you to do something, that's false or that's true. So the answer to number 5 is no. That is not a sentence in the logical sense. Number 7, why do fools fall in love? So again, if somebody asked you this question and you said that's true, it wouldn't really make much sense. Again, you might be saying it's true that fools do fall in love, but the question itself is not the kind of thing that can be true or false. If somebody asks you a question, you say true, right? That's not the right kind of thing to say. All right, so 7, no, it is not a sentence in the logical sense. Number 9, all red fire trucks are blue. Now you might be looking at just the structure of that sentence and saying, well, clearly that's false, because if they're red, how can they be blue? But maybe they have some red and some blue or something like that. But again, it would make sense to say of this, if somebody uttered it to you, it's true or it's false. So again, the answer there is yes. I wish today was Friday. Number 11. Again, this might throw you a little bit because it's expressing a wish as opposed to stating a kind of factual claim like number 9. But again, the question isn't whether it's factual or subjective or anything like that. The question is, does it make sense if somebody uttered this to respond by saying that's true or that's false? And again, it seems like it does. If somebody said, I wish today was Friday, you might say, oh, come on, I know you hate Fridays. I think that's false, right? And if you said that, it would make perfect sense. So number 11, yes, that is a proposition because it makes sense to say of it that it's true or false. 13, I am going to vote for Juan. Okay. Now again, the question isn't, this is saying something about the future, but if somebody said, I am going to vote for Juan, and you responded to that person, that's true, you are going to vote for Juan, that would be perfectly fine and acceptable. And so, yes, that's a proposition. 15, there are 9 planets orbiting the sun. Nowadays, if you uttered that sentence, somebody might well say that's false because Pluto is no longer considered by some to be a planet. So if somebody could say of a sentence that you uttered it's false, then that means yes, it is indeed a proposition or a sentence in a logical sense. Finally, number 17. Oh no, I have a couple more now. 17, all birds can fly. Again, somebody might mention to you penguins or ostriches and say, therefore, that sentence is false. And again, if you can make sense of somebody saying it's false, then yes, it is a proposition. And finally, number 19, I am possibly a poached egg. Again, that's a very outlandish, silly, ridiculous thing to say. But somebody might well respond to you that that is false, that you are not possibly a poached egg. And again, as long as it makes sense for somebody to respond, that's either true or false, then yes, it is indeed a proposition or a sentence in the logical sense. So don't get confused by these other kinds of things about whether it's an opinion or a fact or whatever. The main question to focus on is, if somebody uttered this sentence, would it make sense to respond by saying that's true or that's false? If that would make sense, then it most likely is a proposition. If it wouldn't make sense, like in the case of a question or an imperative,